Welcome to episode 22 of the Pop Anime Comics Lounge. My guest today is professional wrestler Nixon Newell. But before we get into the interview, I would like to remind everybody, please follow us on Twitter at popanimecomics and like the Facebook page Pop Anime Comics and check out popanimecomics.com for articles relating to wrestling, comics, and anime. So without further ado, let's dive right into this interview. How were you first exposed to wrestling?
Well, I used to watch her a lot with my grandfather when I was a child, and he used to sneak me up after school to watch it, so my parents didn't know that I was watching this violent wrestling on TV. And he really just built my love of wrestling and everything about it, so it's really all down to my granddad.
And at what age did you start watching?
I was really young, probably about 5 or 6 maybe, just as 99 was ending, so yeah, I would have been about 5, 6.
And what were you watching?
All different stuff really, like obviously WWF at the time was the big thing, but my granddad used to have like little tapes of World of Sport, so I used to watch whatever he put on the TV for me basically.
And then at what age did you begin to start training for wrestling?
It was just before my 17th birthday. That would have been like 2010, no, 11, something like that. But when I turned about 14, I knew that it was something that I wanted to do, but I just had to turn 16 to be able to do it.
And what really prompted you to say, hey, I want to be a professional wrestler?
My grandfather again. We watched together when Lita and Trish main evented Raw. And he was like, oh, you could do that. You should do it. But at the time, obviously, I was too young. And then when he passed away, I did kind of lose interest a bit in wrestling. But then I thought, no, I have to do it, not only to honour him, but to follow something that I wanted to do since I was a child.
So how did you go about finding a school to train at?
I went online and I looked at different places, and my mother rang schools in England and couldn't find any in Wales. And then by chance, before she started ringing companies further afield, deeper in England, we found a school in Port Talbot, which is probably around an hour away from me. So I started there, and it was literally just on judo mats. There was no ring, so just bumping on these solid mats, and that's how it all came about, and I never looked back.
Who were you trained by, and what did it consist of?
Originally, I was trained by a guy called Dave Stewart and a very known British wrestler, Wild Boar Mike Hitchman. The first day I turned up, I was bumping on judo mats for 10 minutes straight, just trying to get the toughness out of me, apparently. But thinking back, I think it was just a bit mean to see if I wanted to stick at it. But it would mainly rotate around chain wrestling and different stuff like that because we didn't have a ring, obviously. So it was all that. Eventually, I did move on to places like Attack Pro, where I'm now trained by Pete Dunne as well, and also Dragon Pro in Newport, which is done by Mike Bird and TNA Mark Andrews and people like that.
And when you first started training, how often were you training?
The one in Port Talbot was once a month, I think, but it was for like 6 hours a day, so it wasn't that long. But as soon as I found schools then closer and different other schools, and I became friends with different people, it's now I train at least 4 times a week.
Now to talk a little bit about your career, you made your professional debut in 2013 in a few different promotions. Britannia Wrestling Promotion, Union of European Wrestling Alliance, Welsh Wrestling, and Iron Fist Wrestling. Mm-hmm. How did you find these promotions?
Welsh Wrestling is the one I started off at, and I debuted against a British legend really in James Mason, but he was under a guise as Tagori, so that was a bit daunting being with someone of his stand. Him being so good, it was an easy match for me. And then the other promotions, they're really good, and then more promotions started coming to me and I branched out to them, and it just keeps getting bigger and better. Like, I guess so many opportunities now and so many big bookings, but it's all generally down to a few people in the beginning who gave me a chance.
Now, one of your first matches was with Lana Austin, who you've had a career rivalry with. How did that first match come out compared to your latter matches?
That literally came about. I turned up for training one day and we put on a little training match, and they basically said, well, that was good enough for a show, so we're going to put her on the show. So we did that, and then, so obviously looking back now, it wasn't the best of matches, but it was alright at the time. Last time I worked Leanne was a year ago, so it's a lot better than what it was. But I'm hoping now in November when I've got her again, we're going to get the best match we've ever had out of the numerous amounts of matches we've had together.
Now, your career in 2014 took off. So in 2014, you wrestled in Title Championship Wrestling. How'd you get booked there?
That promotion was basically, he saw one of my matches at a different promotion and came through. He's like, oh, I'd like you to work for my show and da-da-da-da-da. So I took the booking, and then I got a couple of good bookings with him and some of my toughest matches at his promotion. Very, very hard hitting with the likes of Addy Starr, who basically we just beat the hell out of each other for a couple of minutes.
Now, while you were involved with this promotion, you were part of the Attack 24/7 title. What were the circumstances of winning this title and losing this title and wrestling some guys in the middle?
Mark Andrews and Pete Dunne had this incredible match, and it was just match of the night completely. But I snuck in after he won. He was talking to the ref, and I rolled him up. So I'd managed to take the belt off Mark. And instead of him hitting me, as I turned round, Wild Boar was stood behind me, kicked me in the stomach, and then hit me with a package pile driver. So within 3 minutes of winning the belt, I'd already lost the belt straight to Wild Boar. So it was a very eventful evening.
Now, after your run in TCW, you came over to Hope, where you started a rivalry with Violent Vendetta, and you two exchanged victories over several months. How did that rivalry start?
I was brought in as T-Bone's sister a couple of months before I was even booked on a match for them, and they brought me back in to try and keep the storyline going, and they had Violet as the big heel there and his main girl, so they brought me in as like the fresh face girl next door type of thing, and just tried to keep that storyline going. With me and Anna then just kept going and going and going, and we had some really fun matches in the promotion, and then just stopped. But then it started picking up again at the same time, which was really weird. Like, we stopped for a couple of matches, and then all of a sudden we had brand new rivalry. I had now turned heel at the promotion as well, so it's kind of like I'm the head girl, but she wants to be the head girl as well. So that turned into that different rivalry then.
Now, you also had other rivalries with other female wrestlers, including Toni Storm, Leanne Austin, as well as Violet O'Hara. How did those rivalries start?
Toni started when she came over from Australia just for a little trip, and she was booked at Great Bay, and so was I. And we had a match in front of like 12 people, if that. But it was such a fun match because we just had the chance to play about and feel about what each other was going to do. And then all of a sudden we started getting booked against each other in a lot of promotions. And Toni is one of my closest friends. Well, she is my best friend as far as I'm concerned. So getting to wrestle her in different situations is quite cool. But that basically just started from a random booking. Back in Great Bay in November last year, I believe. Might have been earlier. Leanne, as I said earlier, started BWP because we just had a random training match and they liked it. And then Violet O'Hara, that started at TCW and then was brought on to Bellatrix down in Norwich, run by the Knight family. And it was nice to kind of change roles there, where I was heel and she was face, whereas in TCW she was heel and I was face. So it's kind of nice to play about with that.
Many wrestlers have said they hit their friends the hardest. Is that true with you?
I hit my male friends hardest. And not so much the women. I feel bad if I hit women as hard as I hit the men, because the men ask me to layer in, and if you ask me to layer them in, I'm gonna lay the strikes in. But with the women, maybe true a little bit with like Toni and Leanne, but I know it's only because they'll give it to me back as hard as I give it to them.
That's a perfect segue into how you became part of an intergender tag team with Chris Brooks. How did you guys form the Vulture Squad?
We were booked at a show called Kamikaze Pro in Birmingham. It was generally supposed to be a one-time deal. It wasn't supposed to go any further than that, but there was quite a few promoters in the crowd. They had seen the video of the match, and they just kept building on these bookings, and the tag team just took off. We had so many bookings, and so many great bookings as well. We debuted for Pro Wrestling Kingdom, Southside, WXW in Germany, and just so many other promotions. But it was literally just from a fluke booking back last year, and now it's just taken off, and it just keeps going from strength to strength.
Why do you think your style with Chris Brooks works as a tag team?
I just think it's because we're so different but so similar at the same time. He's very, very good with technical wrestling and submission style wrestling, whereas I kick people and I enjoy doing that, and I drop people on their heads and I like flying about. So I think having a mixture of everything in one tag team kind of keeps the fans wanting more and keeps them attracted to what they're seeing.
Now, as a tag team, is it easier to get booked in a tag team match or for a singles match?
Probably last year it was easier to get booked as a tag team because it was going so well. But when I snapped my collarbone back in March, I started to break out into singles matches more. And I have no idea why. After that, the single booking started to pick up and pick up and pick up. But hopefully I'll get more bookings with Chris now, although we seem to be feuding a lot of different promotions and having to beat each other up. But at the time it was easier to get tag bookings. Now probably it's easier to get singles bookings, which is a good thing and both are bad things. I do miss tagging with Chris as much.
And as a tag competitor, what is the main difference between being a singles competitor and a tag team wrestler?
I think with the tag team, you have to connect with your partner, and luckily me and Chris connect really well. We are really really good friends, and you kind of have to work together. But being singles wrestler, obviously you have to work on your own. Like, you don't have anybody to fall back on and feel comfortable, but easier, I suppose, in a tag than it is singles. But I've been learning a lot over the last couple of months with regards to singles matches, so hopefully they'll get a lot better. They've been going well so far, but hopefully they'll get better.
Now, in July of 2014, you were involved again in the Attack 24/7 title picture with Leanne Austin, where it was a handicap match. How did that entire thing come up?
Me and Leanne had a singles match, the first ever female singles match at Attack, and after the match, it was Pete Dunne and Mark were a tag in that show, and they had the belt together. So me and Leanne went out afterwards and was celebrating with them and raising their hands, and as soon as they turned it back, we rolled them up simultaneously and both got a pin, so we became joint champions. And then again, within like 5 minutes of celebrating, Mike Bird comes running out, lariats Leanne, and just looks like he's decapitated her, and then he just picked me up, hit me with a pile driver, and took the belt off us. But I have to say, he did lose it to a Teddy about 2 or 3 minutes later, so at least we didn't lose by a Teddy.
And considering that you were wrestling men, how were you received by the locker room?
With the male locker room, they respected me because obviously it was an unusual thing to have in the UK at the time, and they respected me for being able to stand with the men and taking all the hits and taking the moves. I think some women kind of frowned on it, and obviously some men did as well, so I kind of felt more nervous when I walked into a female locker room, just because I didn't want them thinking, oh, she can only work with men. But I have realised over the last couple of months that there is a general respect for working with men and working with women. So when a locker room is full of nice people, it's fantastic to be in. Obviously, you'll get your doubters who will be like, oh, she can only work men, or she can only do this and that and this and that. But it's got me to where I am, and I'm proud of everything I've achieved with it.
Now, you really began wrestling more as a tag team towards the end of 2014. You debuted in SWE, Hope, Pro Wrestling Kingdom. How did these promotions come about?
Southside, which is SWE, that came about because they saw the match that me and Chris had at Pro Wrestling Kingdom, where it was like a four-corner tag match, and I'd done the Canadian Destroyer in that match, and at the time, not many women did that, or hardly any women did that, and the promoter got in touch with me and Chris, and we teamed with John Gresham as well. And he was like, oh, I like what you've done, and you've got a unique moveset, so I'd like to see you come at Southside. So that's how the Southside one came about. And the House of Pain one, I was already there with obviously working with Violet Vendetta and the other girls, and they wanted me to do a heel turn, so they brought Chris in. They had me turn on the guy that I was managing there, so I turned on him and helped Chris get the win, and that's how they brought in the Vulture squad to House of Pain then.
And now you also worked in Hope Future. What is the difference between the two brands, and what was your role in Hope Future?
Hope Future is, in a sense, it's kind of like the developmental version of Hope, where they have the newer stars debut there and then try and work their way up. Basically, the match I had at Hope Future was against the guy that I had been managing in Hope to try and continue the storyline, and because it was a couple of days apart, so the story was fresh in everybody's mind, and they just wanted to cement that heel turn for me. So that's why they brought me into Hope Future, and that's basically the difference. Is one's like a stepping stone to get on the proper Hope shows.
You wrestled Chris Brooks in the Infinity Trophy 2014 semi-final four-way elimination match. What was that like, wrestling your partner?
It was weird, obviously, because we'd teamed together for so long, but I knew I could trust him and I knew he'd keep me safe. And at the time, he was still a good guy, so he kind of worked as a tag in the elimination until it came to us two in the final two. And then obviously we just tried to batter the hell out of each other. But it wasn't until the next night, I believe, either the next night or the next show, we had another match, and he cemented his heel turn there by attacking his best friend and also hitting me with the Infinity Trophy, which he seemed to have done a lot over the last couple of Fight Club shows.
And you were also involved what I call a Christmas match, where you and your partner dressed as Jack Skeleton and Sally against Flip and Forearm. How did this idea come about?
Basically, we're really the only two tag teams in Attack Pro, but also fans have been asking for it a lot, because obviously Mark and Pete are so well known in the UK, and myself and Chris with this hot upcoming tag team, so we thought, why not do it at the Christmas show? And the reason me and Chris dressed up as Jack and Sally is basically because I'm a huge Disney nut, and it was something to do with Christmas, so getting painted blue and then having it not come off for a couple of days was quite the experience.
Now, your last match of 2014 ended with you and Violet O'Hara destroying Craig Anderson, who will be on episode 20 of this podcast. How did that happen, and what's your side of the story?
He was helping Ruby Summers and Lana Austin win. He kept counting the wrong pins, and he just kept thinking we were cheating when we weren't. So as soon as we got that opportunity after he cost us the win, she kicked him in the balls, and I took his head off with a Shining Wizard. Probably really fun. I think the crowd enjoyed it because he is hated at Tidal.
Now, to talk about your career in 2015, you were in some pretty high prolific matches, such as the tournament semifinal for Attack Tag Team Trophy title. How did this match come about?
We got some new wrestlers for Attack, the Wonderlander Wrestle. We had the Anti-Fun Police, Brothers of Construction, myself and Chris, and a couple of other tag teams. And we basically wanted to be different than other promotions with tag trophies. So we had this huge tournament that lasted over a couple of shows, and sadly myself and Chris didn't win, but that's basically how it came about. We just wanted to bring attention to tag team wrestling instead of just singles wrestling.
Now, after the tournament, you got an opportunity to be involved in the Infinity Trophy Fatal 4-Way. How was it going into this match, knowing that you're going to face your partner as well as two other people?
Again, it was quite easy because obviously I trusted all the guys in the match. And it was a fun match. It was hard hitting, but the fans at Fight Club, they really give you the opportunity to show yourself and let them know what you can do. It was nerve-wracking because the crowds are so loud and they have metal boards going around the ring, so the fans are kicking them and slapping them, so it's so loud and it's so intimidating to go out there. But it was a nice, fun, easy match. But again, Chris did hit me over the head with the trophy. That was a bit uncomfortable. And then in a couple of matches later, he did manage to split my head open with the trophy. So that was lovely of him, I suppose.
And you also competed in Southside, Southside, which involved Kaylee Ray, Candice LeRae, and Sahara Knight. What was it like working with these three women?
Intimidating. Very, very intimidating. Obviously, Kaylee is one of the best in Europe, and Candice is one of the best in the world. And obviously, Saraya is so well known, being from the Knight family. So I was basically a nobody in this match. I was like the underdog. It was just probably one of the most nervous matches I've been involved in, working with Candice on her own, because obviously that was a big deal for me. But again, the match was fun, very, very nerve-wracking, but getting a chance to work with all these women at the same time was just phenomenal.
And what did it do for you psychologically to be involved in these three matches of such high caliber?
I thought it'd affect me differently and maybe knock my confidence, because obviously I'm in there with such talented people. It made me such a stronger person and really made me proud of what I've achieved and my abilities, and it did help me a lot and gave me so much more confidence. After that match, I'm happy to walk into any match. I'll be nervous, but I'm happy to walk in there with confidence thinking, yeah, I can do this. So it did help me for the better.
Now in March, you had a steel cage match for British Empire Wrestling. How did that match come about, and how did you feel going into the match?
That came up because the company wanted to make history and have the first female triple threat cage match in the UK. So basically they asked myself, Tony Storm and Eric to be involved in it. And I was excited until I got in the ring and I seen how high it was. And I'm not good with heights. So as I was climbing it, my knees were kind of shaking and buckling, and then trying to climb over the top was just so much effort. So I basically had to throw myself over the top of the cage just to get myself to the bottom of the floor again. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
And then later in British Empire Wrestling, you had the opportunity to run a gauntlet to win the title. How did that come about?
They were crowning their first ever women's champion, and in the match was supposed to be myself, Tony, Lana, Elizabeth, Dragonita, Erin Knight, and Nightshade. But unfortunately some of the girls couldn't make it due to travel. But they asked as many women and more accomplished women to come in and try and fight for this belt to get the honour of being their first ever BEW Women's Champion. And luckily it was down to myself and Tony again in the final two, but I managed to pick up the win and become the first ever BEW Women's Champion.
And you're still the champion, and do you feel that there are any pressures carrying the belt and being the face of the company?
There's definitely pressures. I know there's a few girls out there that want belts, and there's some tough competition coming in with the likes of Shanna, obviously Elizabeth. Tony is a big part of the company. Hell, she was the face of the company for such a long time. So it is a lot of pressure trying to keep the belt and trying to keep a good appearance for the company.
And in September, you had your first title defense against Toni Storm. How did you feel about her being your first title defense, considering that she's been such a rival of yours?
I was happy mainly because she has been such a rival. We get on really well, so having to defend her against one of my closest friends and one of my biggest rivals at the same time was a big deal for me. It was a fun match, and I managed to retain, even though she did kind of beat me up for a lot of it. She really showed her nasty side in that match, but I managed to retain her. And if she wants another go, she can have another go, but she ain't gonna get it.
And then also in September, you were involved in a match with Shanna, involved special guest referee Angelina Love. How did that match come about?
Well, basically, at Kamikaze Pro, Shanna has been causing a lot of problems with the women. I was a guest ref for one of their matches, her match against Toni Storm, actually, because at the time I was still unable to wrestle because of my collarbone. So I was a special guest ref. No one had a clue I was there. And she tried to hit Toni with the belt. I took her off, and as I turned my back, she sprayed Toni in the eyes with hairspray. And then as I was questioning her as to how she managed to beat Toni, she kind of put me in a Kimura lock and re-injured my shoulder. And then at the next Kamikaze show I was on then, I teamed with Martin Kirby against the Hunters, and it was Shanna against Mickie James. So after the match, Shanna attacked Mickie because Mickie won. So I ran out to make the save and started hitting Shanna back and forth, and Mickie kind of broke it up and announced that if we want to fight so bad, we're going to do it at the next show, and we have Angelina Love as the guest referee. So that's how it came about, and the match was really, really hard hitting. My back was hurting for weeks after she kicked me, but she unfortunately managed to pick up the win again by spraying me in the eyes with the hairspray like she did Toni.
So outside of England, you have wrestled just recently in Italy. Can you elaborate on what took place?
Yeah, it was a very fun trip. I wrestled Toni Storm and the Trinidad, formerly known as Rosita from TNA. Myself and Toni, we went over there a bit cocky, thinking, we're British. Well, she's technically British, she lives here. Thinking, we've got this, we're from Europe, she's an American, we've got her. And she managed to pick up the win. Me and Toni kind of teamed together, try and beat her. She's very, very good. She managed to drop me on my head with a code red. It was probably one of my favourite matches I've had to date. Both girls are amazing, so lovely and so talented, but the match was it was fun, crowd loved it, and I know both the girls loved it, and we're really hoping to have a rematch soon.
Now you also won a contest where you had to go to TNA Slammiversary. How did that happen, and what advice did you gain from that experience?
That happened because I decided to watch TNA and I saw a competition pop up, so I thought, I may as well enter, I've got nothing to lose. And then the next thing I know, a couple of weeks later, they rang me in work and was like, oh, you've won tickets to TNA Slammiversary. And I thought he was joking. I thought it was one of my mates playing a joke. So I was like, shut up, just stop trying to take the mic, I'm in work, leave me alone. But the guy was like, no, seriously, you've won tickets to TNA Slammiversary in Boston. It's all true, it's all paid for. I was like, oh, awesome, got really excited. Went over and met numerous people. And the advice I got was just to work hard, keep going, work on a character, find something that makes myself stand out compared to other women wrestlers. And basically to just keep going and not give up, as generic as that sounds, but it's true. There's been so many times where I could have gone, I'm done with wrestling, but because of that advice and the love I have for the sport, it just stopped me from doing so.
And what advice do you have for people who want to get involved in the industry?
Keep your head down and keep going. It's going to be hard. You're going to get hurt and you're going to get injured, but don't let it put you off. If you love the sport, just keep going and you'll find out that you can go places with this, and there's so many opportunities and it's just full of so many nice people. You can make some lifelong friends out of it, so just keep at it and never give up, as cheesy as it is.
And then finally, do you have anything you'd like to promote? Facebook, Twitter, upcoming wrestling shows, merchandise?
Yeah, my Facebook fan page is Nixon Newell, and same with Twitter is at Nixon Newell. And when on there, they'll find all merchandise information, all match updates, all results. So if they need all the details, as I said, they're all on my Facebook page or my Twitter. So just have a look on there and they'll find all the details about the shows.
Thank you for listening to this week's podcast, and remember to subscribe to this podcast so it finds you and you don't find it, and to like us on Facebook at popanimecomics and follow us on Twitter at popanimecomics. Till next time, everybody, have a great week.